Swayam Prabha. Digital India. Educated India.
Success comes only through hard work. The fruits of effort are always realized. With this thought, I would like to welcome you all for our next podcast, which is Viksit Bharat, a journey towards an IPO. And I'm really happy to have an amazing panel with me, starting with Shri Ajay Thakurji, former head and SME and startup at Bombay Stock Exchange, along with the three promoters and stakeholders from the IPO ecosystem. To my extreme left is Dr. Ratish Tagdeji. To my right is Mr. M.Q. Sayedji, and to my extreme right is Mr. Shantanu Bairagiji. Shri Ajay Thakurji will deep dive into his journey, which is very remarkable in terms of SME to IPO journey and creating many IPOs within the country. His initiatives, which were led in reshaping the India's financial landscape, were through SME equity financing. His book chronicles of the evolution of India's SME capital markets from a time when equity financing was a privilege of large corporations to the historic launch of India's first SME platform at BSE in 2010. Shri Ajay Thakur's relentless efforts alongside SEBI unlocked new opportunities for over 1,000 SMEs, raising nearly 18,000 crore and transforming India's entrepreneurial ecosystem. With over 30 years of experience, numerous accolades, and a lasting impact on capital markets, Shri Ajay Thakur's insights promise to inspire innovators, policymakers, and entrepreneurs alike. We uncover his journey of resilience, leadership, and economic revolution as well through this podcast. So, starting with the evolution of SME IPO in India, I would request Ajay sir to, if he could take us through the SME capital markets, how it has evolved, and from being inaccessible to startups at certain given point of time to now being a major avenue for fundraising for startups and SMEs or MSMEs alike.
In fact, equity is a very important pillar of finance for all the small and medium enterprise and the startups. It was very necessary for the country to have SME platform which can provide equity financing to the small and medium enterprises so that they can grow, become mid-cap and large-cap companies and provide employment across the country. As we all know, SMEs are the pillar of Indian economy and their sustainability and growth is paramount to the country. Keeping this thing in mind, in 2010, a task force was created by the then Prime Minister, Sri Manmohan Singh ji, and Mr. Nair, who was at that point of time Principal Secretary in PM office. Under his leadership, it was decided to have SME platform of the stock exchanges, and they suggested to SEBI to create a frame work for this SME platform. On 18th May 2010, SEBI come out with all the regulations, and accordingly SEBI said that any company having post-issue paid-up capital up to 10 crore has to compulsory get listed on the SME platform of the stock exchange. Between 10 to 25 crores of post-issue face value capital, they have the option either to get listed on the SME board or the main board of the stock exchange, and beyond 25 crores, they can only get listed onto the main board of the stock exchange. So, we were knowing that there are lots and lots of small and medium enterprises in the country who are having paid up capital below 10 crores, and they are the best cases to get listed onto the SME platform at the stock exchange to raise equity funding. Keeping this thing in mind, when the guidelines got created, we as a stock exchange, and as you know, BSE was the pioneer in the equity market, equity culture. They have created the equity culture in the country. Therefore, BSE has taken the initiative and we launched the first ever SME platform of the stock exchange on 13th March 2012. After that, the journey was quite long. We have relentlessly worked for 14 years, met almost more than 42,000 promoters across the country, traveled the length and breadth of the country, and finally we succeeded in getting 1200 SME listed on the SME stock exchange of both the places, that is BSE and NSE. And today, approximately 20,000 crore rupees of funds have been raised by the SMEs. These SMEs are from 20 sectors, even IT, ITES, or service-oriented companies. And we have always encouraged the service-oriented companies who are in the startup stage to get listed onto the stock exchange because they are asset-light model company and there are chances of getting list fund through the conservative way of financing. Therefore, equity market was very suited for them. And we have seen the growth of these small medium enterprises. You can also say some of them were almost startups. And today, the market capitalization of these 1100 and 1200 SMEs and the startups are almost 4.5 lakh crore. So, and even we have created a SME IPO index in 2012 December with 100 as a base. Today it's quoting at 1 lakh. So, I think because of this SME platform, all the stakeholders, whether the merchant bankers or the promoters of the companies and the startups or the investors, in this everybody has created wealth and contributed to the growth of small medium enterprises and the startups. So, this is the brief outline of the how this SME platform has evolved.
We are as a nation are indebted to your contribution to the SMEs and IPOs, sir. And I think all these initiatives, which is bringing everyone together and doing something like this, you must have definitely faced challenges in that. So, what were the initial challenges in convincing the stakeholders about the SME listings?
It was a big challenge. I can say it was a Herculean task because you know I have traveled across the country, almost have spoken on more than 2000 seminars, 150 webinars, and along with me the whole team of both the stock exchange. Let me tell you, everybody has worked hard and everybody was contributing in their own way. It was a team effort guided by Security Exchange Board of India. I remember even SEBI was traveling across with us in various parts of the country. We want to create a sustainable ecosystem whereby everybody can, you know, get benefited. This country should grow. We can become third, largest country in terms of GDP in the world. And because of that, we were all working. But of course, in India, we found that the financial literacy was very less. It was all the entrepreneurs were technically very sound, but they don't know how to use finances for the growth of the company. And when it comes to equity market, they get scared that post listing they might have to do lots of compliances. Even the even their financial advisors were not so well equipped to even guide them or suggest them about listing. So for us, you know, going on to the ground, reaching every places, meeting almost 40-50,000 of the SME promoters, then get them converted was a very difficult task. But we have to work in order to see that this country should keep on growing, and our agenda of creating a Viksit Bharat should be met. And with that agenda in mind, we kept on working. We have never thought of getting tired, relentlessly worked hard, and finally the result is in front of you.
It is with the people like you who contribute in immense nation building, the results of which we are going to see, you know, and already seeing it, and you know, the Viksit Bharat 2047 will be a success. Now, coming to the, the entrepreneur guests on the panel, I would request you to introduce yourself, and while you are introducing yourself, I would like you to answer this question: at what stage your company felt that it was IPO ready?
It's indeed pleasure to be talking about the journey of an SME which is now listed on the Bombay Stock Exchange. and not just listed, but it has proved that a small company can also grow big. Many thanks, I would say, to Ajay Thakurji, because he's the pillar and the source of inspiration for many like us who can really think of big dreams. So I started my career with 2,300 rupees in my pocket in 1997, and I did not know what business and how much can I really do from this. Fortunately, we were in a situation wherein log kehte hain na tin डूबते को तिनके का सहारा. So that thought process led us to working more harder and moving forward in the life for a more successful journey. So from 1997 till now, we have seen all up and downs of our lives, and we have seen that how an SME and MSME, goes through various challenges in the life. However, in 2022, when we realized that there are many companies which are getting listed on Bombay Stock Exchange and NSE both, we thought, why not see ourselves also into that league? At that point of time, it was like a dream, because what we saw on the screens or the stock exchange, it was never a bifurcation of what companies are there which are SME and what companies are large cap, mid cap, or the small cap. So when you see the screens while investing in a company or scrolling in a company, looking at the results, it doesn't specify this, because once the listing is done, it doesn't say whether it's an SME or non-SME, unless you go and buy some share and there is a minimum amount of share that you need to buy. We realized that this is a big ocean, and we are a small fish. We might not be able to achieve anything of being listed. But then finally we met Mr. Ajay Thakur. And when we met him, we realized that he is the one who can really pull the strings of the SME domain in India, and he's the one who can guide us through the successful journey from here on. And hence we got very good guidance from him as a person, and of course BSC as a whole in terms of the team. And then we decided that we'll go on this path. We had a very tough time of 1.5 years to really get prepared for ourselves, because of course, as rightly put by Mr. Ajay Thakur, that no company is looking at the equity market to be their main source of journey, but they always focus on the technicalities and the business part of it. So we had to go through a lot of documentation, paperwork, declarations, transparency, and finally we filed our DRHP, which is draft red herring prospectus. Even after filing the DRHP, we had to go through various different types of challenges and processes. And we were thinking that this is a last breath of us. We might not be able to list ourselves. But then, as always, Mr. Ajay Thakur has been part of this growth journey, not for a company like us, but all the SMEs in the country. He always was there to handhold till the last extent of this process and system. And finally, we got listed. After we got listed, we were having great, amount of, acquisitions in front of us. A lot of proposals came in, and we started exploring the growth pattern ahead, because we realized that now, since we are a listed company, we are a public company, it is our moral responsibility to ensure that the shareholders who have invested in us should also be benefited. And they should always feel proud to be part of a company like us. And hence we started working more harder. So from a small company which started its journey in 1997 with 2,300 rupees to a company which got listed, and within a year's time it got a market cap of 500 crore. It was nothing less than a dream. And this made us think that there is a possibility of Viksit Bharat, and this is the right platform to actually move forward. And that's how this entire ecosystem works. There are more than 10 crores MSMEs in the country. And I'm sure that out of them, if in next 20 years, 22 years, if 10,000 companies get listed on a stock exchange, the actual Viksit Bharat dream of the Prime Minister could be achieved.
Definitely,
So
we will discuss more about this journey which you talked about, and post IPO journey as well. Moving to Shantanu ji to gain insights from him as to, please briefly introduce yourself and your IPO journey.
So the company started about 7 years back as a tech company, right? So started by two gentlemen, Raja Devnath and Gautam Udani. So the premise was that there is in India supply chain as a business or working capital as a business is not that well entrenched in terms of the asset class that is there in the country. So, and one of the major drivers for that is technology. So, how do you provide a technology to these entities for them to become more working capital? This thing. So, and banks had some technology, but nobody was specifically making this as a tech platform, which is where these two gentlemen thought that that's where we need to start off with, right? Today we do this technology, supply technology to about 50 to 60 or 60 banks and NBFC in India and abroad, right?
Amazing.
We have a client base of more than 500 entities. Now, see, when the journey started, we started small, right? And it's a tech company, it's an asset-light company. The idea was to bring into a certain amount of revenue growth or a steady state wherein your ability to scale it up becomes much more certain, right? That is the time around 2003 or 2002 when the thought process started that now once you have established the POC, or the proof of concept, and you're seeing clientele coming in, is the time for you to scale up, right? And that's the time. How do you scale up? What is the way capital that you need to capital base that you need to tap, which will give you that next level of growth? Now, various options are there. We as a country are extremely bit. I would say that always been little starved of capital.
Yeah.
Right? And but the major sources of capitals are, of course, an entrepreneur putting their own money, then VCP funds, and capital markets as a concept doesn't come to the startups very easily.
Yes.
Right. And I think, as Sayed already covered a little bit of from this thing, initiative by Mr. Thakur. These are the areas where people started thinking about it. The two main reasons why we went through the journey of an IPO rather than going through a PE or a VC fund, which is the next option of generating capital. First is, while we have set up a business which is in the tech, but we want to grow on various other aspects also of working capital and supply chain, right? And these are long gestation businesses, right?
Yeah.
We are not in a business that we would be happy to, when a lot of the PE or VC funds, before they come into the company, they always want to look at when they are going to get an exit, right? Our philosophy is that we are here to build businesses over a very long period of time. So what we need is a patient capital, right? Wherein people would be wanting to come to a company, grow with us. Of course, there is an element of market price determination or liquidity that always plays in a manner, but people have to come and be patient and grow with us. So that's one part of the thing. Second is, see, in a tech company, it's predominantly people and capital, monetary capital and human capital. Right? So the human capital becomes a very important part of our business. And important, so much of effort by government is being done to create employment in the country. The young generation, we are producing so many engineers, so many things. So when any young person comes and joins our company, what do they look at? For me to get them into a long-term buying into the company, they should look at into that, are they participating in the growth of the company, and they are also a part owner of the company, right? Which can happen only if they also see, and I don't want to specifically target anybody, but a lot of unlisted entities give ESOPs to their employees, right? You don't know where it goes, right? Vis-a-vis, when you give an employee a listed entity stock, that gives that particular employee a little bit more enthusiasm to be part of the journey.
Right.
These are the two basic factors because of which the company decided that we should go further.
Great, sir. Great insights over there, Syed sir, Shantanu sir. Over to Ratish sir. How has been your journey within the IPO ecosystem, and what role do you play? If you can share it with the audience.
And I would like to throw some light on, apart from these two pillars, there is another pillar which connects the dots, different dots. So I'll just go little back in my career. I have seen the era of CCI also, which is pre-SEBI. We used to go to Delhi and get the approvals. Then in 92, SEBI came in.
Right.
So that is about regulatory. Then BSc, NSC and all these things. This is about the regulatory framework. And then I have also been witness to the era of, stock market running on that signals, physical shares. And then how the entire process of IPO got evolved.
Right.
How the subscriptions were done, then stock invest instruments, so many things. I mean, I have also written a book on practical aspects of IPO way back in.
What's the name of the book?
Practical aspects of IPO.
Okay.
So the point here is, then I remember having interactions with Ajay ji way back in 2010 when actually this entire thing came up. Then it will not be exaggerating if I say कि अजय जी और हम बात करते थे कि भाई एक दो कंपनियां दे दो SME के लिए. Then somehow I got my company. I was on the board of a company, Money Masters करके NBFC है. Then we got NBFC somehow listed.
Okay.
So that is the kind of struggle which senior professionals like we, and under the able guidance of Ajay ji, we have seen this kind of a struggle. And because of that struggle, today we are able to see that even the dreams of a small entrepreneur,
right,
जो कभी सोच भी नहीं पाएगा कि लिस्टिंग उसके लिए ये थोड़ा सोचिए. Like I was in Bhubaneswar and I was talking to a very small entrepreneur. 15-20 करोड़ का टॉप लाइन था, है अभी उसका. He's in a very good space of say digital mapping, which is very happening space. But when I spoke to him and I told him that there is a possibility, so he says कि अच्छा ऐसा हो सकता है क्या मेरे लिए? So it is not only a capital market, it is not only SME, it is not only it is just selling their dreams. They are coming, they are now able to think about that. Okay, fine, उनके भी शेयर का वैल्यू आज स्क्रीन पे दिख सकता है. ये जो aspirations जो खड़ा किया है ना, that is all because of Ajay ji's efforts.
Absolutely.
And I have been part of the journey, and I'm so proud to be part of this entire journey actually.
Great insights, Ratish ji, over there. I would again go back to all of you and ask this, common question, like, what could be the biggest strategic advantages which the promoters gain post IPO? Some of you already highlighted. But what shift happens? Because it's a strategic move. So what happens later on? What is anticipated and does it match to, what you had planned? Can we start with you?
So for us, it has been all about the reputation. We have been focusing on our reputation right from the beginning of our inception in the country. And then we got listed. The best thing that today I am able to, sort of communicate to anyone, whether it's a client or a government officer or, investor or a friend, in one word, is that we are a listed company. So this, we are a listed company itself is such a statement, which a statement is not, this means that the entire journey of this statement has already been incorporated into making this communication forward.
Correct.
So that's an amazing thing for us as a promoter of a company. Government organizations, of course, you have a lot of technical criterions for filing up different type of tender. Since we are into exhibitions and events domain, that to a 360-degree solution for trade fairs and exhibitions in the country.
Mhm.
So a lot of technical side of confirmation is required when there is a tender of the government. So when we say we are a listed company, the rest of the things are history.
Mhm.
So this one statement itself is a paramount in being there
Mhm.
and witnessing it and accepting the fact that this is something which every entrepreneur should come forward and get the heat of it.
Right.
We have the most vibrant and vibrant debt capital or vibrant capital markets in the world.
Right.
Right now, when any company is listed, right? Not only the regulators, there are a lot of analysts, there are a lot of firms who are observing you, who are looking at you, right? Which changes the way there is a lot of market validation that happens
Right.
because of that.
Mhm.
Market validation which happens not only for the investor segment, but also happens for our customers, for instance. Right? And I think Syed touched base on that. So customers, your own people, so there is a 360-degree market validation that you're getting out of the whole thing. Right? So that's one very important part, and it becomes far easier when you go and talk to client. And we talk to large banks, we talk to a lot of NBFCs. While we are listed, but when you say that not everybody knows the companies that well, but once you say that this listed, so then the conversation changes a little different.
Mhm.
That's one. The second thing is by virtue of having one entity listed, it is also help us think about a lot more for the acquisition front,
Mhm.
right? So when a lot of entities who want to join us, we want to take acquisition, it becomes easier for us to also see that we have proven ourselves at one end.
Right.
And when I'm looking at acquiring a new company, and there is for those companies who are coming and either organic or inorganic, and they're coming onto the fold, they have certain amount of belief that this company has shown a path, and we can possibly join them on the journey.
Ajay sir, any highlights from your end? Like, you have seen so many companies flourish post IPO. So, what do you think, really adds up a spark and they have come back to you and saying, "Ki, sir, this was the big change which happened."
See, the most important thing is, see, initially, whenever the promoters have come, they have only one perspective in their mind, that to get the funds from the capital market. But post listing, everything changed. Okay, listing is a dynamic process, it's not one time process.
Mhm.
But post listing, one thing the promoter also understood, that they are under the glaring eyes of not only the regulators but investors at large. And therefore, the first important thing that they have brought in their business was discipline. And when you brought discipline into the business, from that day the business starts growing. And when the business starts growing, then the unlocking of the value of the company starts. When the unlocking starts, it gives your company a lot of visibility, it gives a company a lot of respect. And a respected entity, the employees of the company also feel, very respected. And then they contribute in a big way to the growth of the enterprise. So it's a effect, it's a ongoing effect which happens to the company. And because of this, we have seen most of the company transforming. When they first approached to me, when I started talking to them, they really think of that whether this can happen or not. But let me tell you, my most difficult thing in my life or in this journey was to convince only for the first time to get that company listed. Post listing, I have never seen any promoter of any company coming to me or calling me again, because they understood the benefits of listing. And not only, as I have talked about unlocking of the value of the company, let me tell you, many of these companies have raised second round and third round of funding. And because of these funds and investors, I always say in the capital markets, not the shares that is traded, it's always the trust that trades. And once the trust keeps on growing, then raising the funds become very easy, even much easier than getting the funds from the banking or NBFC or from any place. So I think, the capital market, and let me tell you, Fortunately, this SME platform has paved the way for many aspiring small, even I can say macro enterprises and mid-cap startups, for all of them. And today this platform is thriving and all the promoters have become the advocate of the SME platform.
Absolutely. So moving on to the next question, I would like to ask you is, could you give some use cases of startups, like one we have, like which started 7 years back, but are there any prominent, one unusual case which you would like to mention where the time to go for IPO was very small?
So let me tell you, in India, as I initially said, because of the financial literacy and the importance of compliance is not well understood by the promoters or even by the consultant and the advisors. Most of the promoters are so busy in continuing their business or growing their business that most of the times the compliance takes the back seat. So therefore, when you go for listing, let me tell you, listing is a process. But I have always told everyone, even at various forums, that equity funding is the safest way of raising funds for the promoter, but riskiest way of giving money by the investors. Okay, because it is not backed by any collateral or surety, something like that. So how you can raise funds? By saying to the world that you are well compliant, you are well disciplined. So when the merchant banker, who is the lead manager or investment banker who is taking your public, so has to showcase your company in the best possible manner, seeing that you are well compliant, all the processes are in the place, and because all the processes are in place, then the regulatory approval will be also in place. So it takes some time for making the companies well compliant, but they are hundreds of successful, I can say those were the startups. I have got one company listed, the turnover was hardly 8 to 10 crores, profit was hardly 50 lakhs to 1 crore. And today, let me tell you, that company is having a turnover of last year balance sheet, this year I don't know. As per the last year's balance sheet, their revenue was 163 crores and the profit was 63 crores, that also after tax. So we have companies in renewable energy. When company in the renewable energy came for listing, at that point of time nobody understood about renewable energy. It was just like a startup.
Right.
It becomes most difficult when people don't understand your business to raise funds.
Absolutely.
Okay, and they were much ahead of the time. Today everybody is talking about renewable energy, but at that point of time the capital market has given them the money, but though at lesser valuation, but today they have gone up multifold. Say for example, Mr. Sayyed is sitting here, he is again asset light corporate event managed company. These companies are less understood because they are asset light company.
Right.
But equity funds they have got, and now they are moving upwards. Same way Biffin, this is 7 years old company. Again, most of the investors, you go and talk about the company, they will not understand. But as the company progress, as they grown, as he has rightly said, that there are analysts there are people who have started studying your company, who have started talking your company. So the capital market is the best place to create a spokesperson for your company.
Yes.
And when there are thousands of spokespersons, you get visibility, you get respect, you are able to unlock the value of your company, you are able to get repeated customers, you are able to get new clients, and that's how the company progress.
It creates a dynamic capabilities for.
Yeah, it creates vibrance into the company.
Right. Coming to Ratishji, sir, could you take us through understanding how does the IPO process differ from a SME compared to a large cap company, or generally what is the process as to from the time when a promoter comes to you that okay, we think we want to go for an IPO, how you handle that?
So I'll just reframe your question.
Sure.
See, understanding the process of IPO, it's a big subject.
Yeah.
And even when you start with eligibility criteria, हमको भी नया issue आता है तो उसको revise करना पड़ता है.
Correct.
Because every time it is a new challenge, new interpretations, how the figures have been positioned. Now, when we compare with large cap companies, I mean the large IPOs or what we call it main board IPOs and SME IPOs. So जो IPOs main board के होते हैं, see they are already at a very high scale of operations. They have already touched 500,000 crores of revenue. So they have full battery of professionals.
Correct.
And they have the capability to spend money.
Right.
And that is how they are. They have the books, they have PAT, they have EBITDA, everything is in place. So for them, I would look at it like this: that for them it is easy, to go for the main board IPO because everything is ready.
Right.
Now, when we talk about SME IPO, so that is where government has played a very important role. They have made it very simple.
Right.
So that, when I talk to promoters, so I generally find them in a situation where they have got couple of companies, they have businesses in all companies, and with one aspiration that we want to go for fundraising. कैसे करें इसको? Then a professional has to get into the structuring, he has to get into the capital builder and everything, then see the eligibility criteria, then see how the industry is flaring up in that particular space.
Right.
vis-a-vis industry ये लोग कहाँ है? Then again go back to the capital market and catch hold of some investors who are willing to wait, who are willing to hold, give some funding to the company, take it to the next level.
Right.
So all these possibilities are now realities.
Right. So basically, you talked about also, when you mentioned about this aspect, you talked about there are eligibility criteria or some determinants, right? You must be already if 100 people are pitching you in a month, you understand these are the key areas which I will look at. So what are those key areas? And this question is to Ajay sir also.
No, so in addition to what he said, as you have asked the question that what is the difference between main board IPO and SME IPO. See, as he has rightly said, Dr. Latif has rightly said that main board companies, for the large companies, we have got very attractive EBITDA, maybe 100 crore, 200 crore, something like that. Now, let us come with what regulatory guidelines are.
Yeah.
So, the regulatory guidelines say that if your post-issue face value capital is above 10 crores and your 3 years out of last 5 years, total EBIT is more than 45 crores, then you can get listed onto the main board of the stock exchange.
Okay.
Below that, you have the option of listing only onto the SME board. Okay. Having said that, even if the EBIT is less, but it's a startup like Zomato, Paytm and all those things, now they were working at very large scale.
Yeah.
So those type of companies can't get listed because they are large PVC, they have got Series A, Series B, Series C funds at very high valuation.
Yeah.
So on the SME board, it was not possible. So there is a regulatory provision under ICDR guidelines which talk about listing onto the stock exchange, which says that if your total operating profit of last 3 years out of 5 years is below 45 crores, but your operation is very high, then also you can get listed onto the main board, subject to 75% of your IPO should be funded by institutional investors.
Okay.
Otherwise, you have the option only to the SME board. So, SME board, any company who is having below this, they are most suited for SME board of the stock exchange. So, this is the one part. Second difference between SME board and the main board is this, that in the case of main board, final approval goes from Security Exchange Board of India. Here in the case of SME board, approving authority is the stock exchange where the prospectus is filed. Okay. So, in that way, the time period for company getting listed on the SME board and on the main board is that on the SME board you can get your company listed very fast.
Okay.
Okay. It's also because it's a SME company, it's a very cost effective way of getting listed and efficient way of getting listed. And and besides that, both the stock exchange have got some other eligibility criteria whereby they said that at least your net tangible assets should be minimum 3 crores. Your net worth should be minimum 1 crores. At least you should be in the business for minimum period for 3 years with EBIT, that is operating profit of minimum 1 crore in the last financial year, last 2 financial years. So these are the other eligibility criteria which are there onto the SME board. But initially, let me tell you, when I was trying to start this SME platform, my another major problem at that point of time that I don't have any merchant banker who wants to work onto the SME platform for 2 reasons. Number one, here on the SME board, there was a concept of 100% underwriting, which we also call hard underwriting, which is not there on the main board. And the second criteria which they have introduced was the concept of market making. And the responsibility was on the market maker to provide two-way quotes so that someone, if wants to sell, they can take an get an exit, and if somebody wants to buy, they can get the shares. So this was the market making concept. And third concept that they have introduced was the concept of lot size, whereby they have restricted retail investors to participate onto the SME platform. So these were the 3 reasons because of which the merchant bankers don't want to participate on the SME platform. So my difficulty in the initial days was I don't have the merchant banker, I don't have the promoters, I don't have the investors, and I have to create all 3.
Everything together. We have heard good things about, the process of IPO now, but there are also, a lot of things which at the family end or at the, your board which is there at that end. So there could be some roadblocks to it. So what were the major roadblocks which you faced during your IPO journey, and how were you been able to overcome those?
I wasn't aware that once you get listed on SME, there are always a watchdog type of a situation from the investors, from the people around you, and of course the merchant banker and the exchange. They always look at you from the suspect point of view. They don't just accept yourself as a promoter of whatever you have committed and whatever you've done. This is a situation which might be okay for an startup, but bad for an established company like us. So we started a journey and we proved ourselves in terms of our reputation in the market and exclusivity in the service and the niche that we had created in the exhibition and trade fair sector. After getting listed, we suddenly realized that there are people who are doubting our credentials. And they always look at us in a manner that we have to prove ourselves once again. So it was a situation wherein a journey has been already proved and the next journey is to be proved again because now you are in a public domain.
Right.
But there are another very important fact to it, that whatever commitment you make to your investors and shareholders, if you are able to fulfill them, there's a great amount of trust that by default, develops. Our journey is a reflection of that trust. In 1.5 years, I think we could be one of the very few companies on the SME platform, which actually got the fundraise thrice, not just once. So in just 1.5 years, this is our 3rd round. The first round we raised was 21 crore 60 lakh rupees out of diluting about 30% of total equity of ours. To us, that was also a great journey. Within 6 months, we got great amount of traction from the large and the investors who are there as the institutional investors or the HNIs or the ACE investors. They got attracted towards us because of our journey and because of the niche that we had created and the kind of company that we had been part of. And they advise us that you are going very good. Why don't you raise another round of fund? And they themselves arranged everything for us. So the second round we did was another 40 crores in the span of 6 months after the listing. And I'm very happy to state that the 3rd round, while I'm sitting today here, we got the in principle approval yesterday from the exchange to raise 140 crores from the preferential allotment. And those 140 crores is already sold out in just a few days. I mean, there are only 50 investors who bought this shares on behalf of the company. So my point here is that more risk, more reward, more transparency, more trust. And as you move forward, there is no dearth of money. if you have a right way of doing things, transparent manner, and as rightly, raised by Ajay sir, that the compliance, the corporate governance, these are the facts of your growth journey from here on. We are very sure of moving on towards becoming a small cap, mid cap, and finally the large cap.
Mhm.
And it is only because we got listed as an SME.
Right.
So that's a journey
Mhm.
of an SME, which could be very difficult at times, but at the same time, when you face hurdle, you become more stronger, and your company becomes more and more trustworthiness. So that's what is my take on this.
So first of all, when our entity got listed, and within a period of time, we were like about 10 times of what the listing price was, right?
Mhm.
So it was a lot of times looked at that too good to be true, right? So that becomes a lot of people. You get into a lot of public scrutiny there, right? In terms of saying that, okay, how is moved? So with some part of it, of course, is the way that markets have moved on their own, right? So then this whole communication to a lot more investors. There are, of course, genuine investors who have believed in us and were invested, and there are, of course, some people who have moved along with the market. So that justification starts a lot more than what it is. I would not say this as a problem, but this is an additional work that or additional aspect of our business that we have to get into now is compliance, right? So a lot of compliance, and every time because every time you do an expansion through an inorganic or an organic manner, you have to keep that into the mind. And the main board is the main company, which is the listed company. What is the impact on that? What kind of regulatory approvals we need to do? So that bit complexity has gone up a little bit more than just being a private company. The two main aspects.
So coming to Ajay sir, you are the Sarve Sarva of the IPO in the Indian ecosystem. How you see the landscape shaping up when we see Viksit Bharat 2047? How do you think things will be 5 years, 10 years, probably 15 years down the line in the IPO landscape?
See, I am a very optimistic person. Otherwise, it was not possible for me to create this SME platform. Because at that point of time was surrounded by pessimism. See, I trust in the entrepreneurial capability of the entrepreneurs in India. They have guts, they have courage, they have conviction, they have honesty, they have integrity and truthfulness, and most of the time they are fighting against the odds. All the stakeholders, especially in the regulatory space, maybe the government, the bureaucracy, the exchanges, the RBI, all these institutions, everybody has to ensure that there should be a sustainable development in the entrepreneurship. If we want to reach to the goal of Viksit Bharat, or what our vision is, I think the most important thing that we want to do is to create an ecosystem where the entrepreneurs should thrive. Then only I think we can reach to the Viksit Bharat. We all have to play our important role. I think a lot has started happening in this direction. Let me tell you, the first when Pradhan Mantri Modi ji has taken the charge, the very next year he has come with the concept of Startup India. Okay. Another big milestone, I think, I always say that it was a game changer. It came in the form of Jan Dhan Yojana. It could not have been successful, but let me tell you, I will thank all the bankers who have gone onto the roads and tried to create the accounts. Okay, though they don't get the credit, especially public sector undertaking entities, they normally don't get the credit. But let me tell you, they work so hard to create so many Jan Dhan accounts. Then we have seen, Mudra bank coming for, supporting the macro enterprises, which are millions in numbers.
Right.
We are today the third largest startup ecosystem.
Yes.
The most important thing, but let me tell you, most of these startups, though they have the potential, but they require a lot of hand holding. okay, to convert them into a sustainable unicorn in terms of profitability. But at some point of time, I want to see them a profitable institution so that they can contribute to the exchequer of the country. Okay. So, if all these things start happening, and in this budget also, I think a lot of provisions have been done for MSMEs. Okay. We have seen that, term loan up to 20 crores have been provided for startups.
Yes.
A new 10,000 crore fund has been created, which we are expecting a lot to come. We are seeing a lot of incubation centers coming. We have the capability. I think we are the intellectual capital of the world, and therefore we all need to ensure that our young population, the demographic dividend that we have got in this country, should be supported, guided, motivated to ensure that we should become $20 trillion economy in the times to come.
That's great thoughts. Anyone else would like to add to, how you visualize the IPO landscape and what changes you see in near future happening within the ecosystem?
I think the private investment has to go up a lot more. Now, private investments, of course, is accessible to a lot of these large entities because they can access capital market, they can access debt capital markets, foreign capital, right? And one area where I think most of the startup ecosystem MSMEs are lacking is this aspect of generating capital, either through equity or through debt, right? And innovation is the thing that which will catapult us to the Viksit Bharat, right? And we have seen that happening in the service side where entities like Infosys, Wipro that got created, which were not the traditional businesses.
Correct.
And entrepreneurs put in their money, they started off, and today what we see is our service sector export is possibly the much bigger than the manufacturing. Similarly, we are seeing that whole revolution coming in from the startup ecosystem.
Yeah.
And that ecosystem will get that energy only if they see lot more capital access. And this is the reason that initiative like MSME listing, some of the initiative which was done through when the COVID started, and there was a CGT SME, there was a trade guarantee scheme which was launched.
Correct.
It had a lot of startups, right? Today, last week, the budget, the long-term capital, this thing has been provided through support through long-term. So, a lot of these initiatives need to keep at a certain interval to keep the entire ecosystem growing. And for me, one of the major point of entire this whole ecosystem growing is generation of employment.
Right.
Because the small MSMEs, we are service sector, a
Absolutely.
lot of automation is happening, but this is the sector which we can give a lot of young people are graduating every year.
And none of the governments
Sitting
can
in a
give that.
campus which is generating so many engineers.
Right.
So for the engineers, where do they see job creation?
Right.
And job creation can happen through more and more startup ecosystem MSMEs. And that is I think from all of our effort, that is the most important part, which is to me a lot satisfying than anything else.
Well, I think that resonates with thoughts of Honorable PM, because when in 2016 he also talked about it, and the recent report by Ajay Bangasar, World Bank, 800 million jobs are to be required in near future, and where are those jobs going to be created? None of the governments can create these many jobs. It will only come from startups, SMEs, MSMEs. So coming to the end of the session, I would like to ask one question related to academia, because I represent the Ministry of Education Innovation Cell, and a lot of patents have been created within academic ecosystem. In fact, to give you numbers, last year 1 lakh patents have been granted. And what are these patents? We don't know, because these patents have been created mainly in silos. A lot of them have been done only for the research purposes and for the ranking of the institutions. But having said that, there is a big opportunity where some of the IPs can be monetized. So can we look at a journey of IP to IPO coming from academia, which has been also seen abroad, happening in India? I'm like, how many startups could be coming up in near future which created a patent and would take it that to an IPO?
If you compare the Western or developed economies and developing economies, IP plays a very important role. Now, this requires a change in the thought process from the top level in the government. As long as we keep talking about top line, bottom line, EBITDA, and all these things, there is no place for IP.
Correct.
The very first thing we need to understand how an IP should be valued. Number two, how it can be monetized. So, I'll give you an example. I was staying with one of my friends in US. So he's a scientist. So he was developing, he was working on a molecule. So I asked him, "Ki, what is your business model?" So he says in US it is very simple. If I complete 10% of my research, then there is a valuation to it.
Okay.
If I complete 40%, there is a value to it. So according to my capacity, I can raise funds only to the extent of completing say 25 to 30% of this R&D. So that kind of thought process is not yet developed at the government level, not yet developed at the investors level, because we don't have that ecosystem. See, we are progressing as far as the funds are concerned. Like recently, you must have seen there are social stock exchanges.
Yeah.
So there are NGOs which can come and tap the market.
Correct.
So there is a process which is going on, but as far as IP is concerned, we are still.
That's true. So, what I know about the mapping is there are three criteria. One is the technology readiness level by which we map. One is the investment readiness level, and the third one is the market readiness level, whether it can go to the market. But as you mentioned, there are no rubrics associated with it. So, if I am a scientist in India, I don't know where I am and how much validation I've got. Whether I should also continue whether in that line. Anyone else would like to share their insights as to, or the last thoughts from your end as to what academicians who are going to listen to this podcast could, want to focus on in near future?
So I feel that academicians should prepare to be an entrepreneur from the day they get admitted to any school. What we normally have the journey of a student progressing to become an entrepreneur and then finally a corporate head honcho is divided into different categories. So when they're studying, they're just studying. They don't really get into the entrepreneurship journey at all. When they're getting into entrepreneurship journey, they forget about what academics they're really achieved. And when they move to the next level, the below level is gone.
Correct.
So if we really conceive a complete goal setting right from the day of getting admitted to a school level and then finally reaching out somewhere just into our minds and just make notes that this is where we want to reach, I'm sure that the journey will become much more easy. And the goal setting is important. I would say the goal setting is something which is the must for any student to really get succeeded in life.
So one of the biggest intervention in terms of creating IP in this country has been through academic institutions.
Right.
So, like my alma mater, which is IIT Madras, we have an incubation center.
Yeah.
And a lot of work being done there.
Absolutely.
IIT Bombay already had this thing work being done for a long time. Most of the IITs have, because they have reached a certain amount of this thing. And today we are sitting in this college, the Sardar Patel Institute. I'm sure there is also an innovation center here. Entire process of creating IP starts from academics. So why, if you see, so much of innovation happens in US, because the amount of university investment into research and development is huge, right? That ecosystem has to grow up from academic institutions. Some point which Sayed mentioned, right? When we start a business, right, as a percentage of a total spend or investment, any corporate, even for the largest corporates in India, is very, very small as compared to globally, right? And it is going to be continuing like that for some time. We can't change it. vis-a-vis, where can this come in? Because there is a lot of pressure. So when you are running a business, you have to pressure for growth, you have pressure for profitability, and then those things become really more important than investment, right? While that's not maybe the right thing, but that's the reality. However, in an academic institution, you will have a lot more patience in that sense, right? And you have access to talent, you have access to professors, academicians who can work a lot more this thing. So I think your point of saying that how can IP, I think the academic institutions can be in the forefront of creating this IP in this country.
What you have said is something else. I think what he was talking about, that there are thousands and thousands of IP already there which are not being monetized.
Yeah.
Okay, that was the thing that he was asking about. See, in that, let me tell you, see, unless until we understand the value of IP or patent, okay, and unless and until we understand that these IP and patent are created for doing business,
Right.
no, we can't generate business out of that. If academicians think that my job ends when IP gets created, after that my job is over, then it is never going to prosper or never going to be monetized or result into business. I think that there are missing links. What is needed today is that the government, the academia and the industries, all three should work together to monetize that IP and take it to the next level. If all these three are disintegrated, then I think IP and patents will die their natural death. So my personal advice or suggestion will be, and let me tell you one more thing. India is in the stage of transition. India was till recently a job seeker country. Now we are trying to cultivate the entrepreneurship culture. I think it will take some time. We are seeing PVC culture coming. We are seeing, investors, millions of investors adding into the capital market. We are seeing new companies, so many companies getting listed. I think these are not far away, whereby you will start seeing that the IP and patents also start seeing their journey, and start seeing the people start monetize. But I think here we need to have a dedicated cell. We should work for monetizing this thing. If we will not do that, then I think these links will always be missing and will never be able to monetize it.
So with that, we are coming to the end of the podcast. It's always a dream for any startup founder to take his startup to an IPO. And we have great promoters who have shared their insights and their journey with us today. And who else than the leader like Shri Ajay Thakurji to guide us in the processes and the nuances and into his experiences of creating that IPO SME listing opportunity for us and creating a big change within the ecosystem for achieving also the dream like Viksit Bharat 2047. It is only possible through entrepreneurs who think like that, who have a vision and who go get those things done. It was also great to have Ratishji who shared with us various nuances of the processes involved in getting into the IPO. So with that, ladies and gentlemen, to all the academicians listening to this podcast and watching it live, watching it on the YouTube channel, if you are serious about getting an IPO, as Sayedji mentioned, transparency is needed, and as Ajay ji mentioned earlier, he started with the notion of getting the discipline in place. I think it's not only the discipline in SMEs or the startups. I think it's also the cultural change which is needed, the top to bottom approach at the academic institutions, which need to have top to bottom approach to creating startups and taking them to the IPO. So with that, thank you so much for joining us. Jai Hind, Jai Bharat.